I think we can get started, Professor
Yes,
Jayashree.
yes, sir. Yes.
Sure.
So very good afternoon to all dear students. So today we are having Dr. Farooq Sheikh with us. So sir is currently associated as an associate professor in neuropharmacology at Monash Medicine and Monash University, Malaysia. And sir has developed a novel model fish, zebrafish model to study epilepsy and all the neuropharmacology related things. Sir is a recipient of Monash PVC Award for Excellence in Research 2020 and 2018 and Best Publication Award by Malaysian Society of Neuroscience in 2017. He is also recipient of Malaysian Society of Pharmacology and Physiology in 2019 Best Young Researcher and 2019 Best Young Teacher Awards. Sir is also involved in a PhD supervision, many publishing papers with very quality and high impact journals, and publish over more than 100 peer reviewed articles, including various book chapters in a highly impact and quality journals. So sir has done his PhD in pharmacology from Institute of Chemical Technology, that is ICT, University of Mumbai. And during PhD tenure, sir has also having the fellowship of IBRO, that is International Brain Research Organization, as a young scientist training program for his research work in epilepsy, and also awarded with the IBRO APRC fellowship to continue the postdoctoral studies at the School of Biomedical Sciences, University of Queensland, Australia. So this is a short, we can say, profile of Dr. Farooq, and we are very fortunate that we are going to hear about the research methodology topics, which is very relevant to the projects or to hypothesize the different research aspects or the things that is important for your upcoming projects. So that's all about the things which will in the next around 60 minutes we are going to hear from Dr. Farooq about all the important things which is related with your projects and the research aspects. So thank you, Farooq sir, for accepting our request, and just you have managed your time to guide our students, which will be definitely helpful to make their project proposals and all. So again, thank you so much, and yeah, over to Dr. Shari.
Okay, thank you, Professor Jayashree. So first of all, on behalf of the Kalsakar Technical Campus School of Pharmacy, I would like to warmly welcome a very close friend of ours, Dr. Farooq Sheikh. So I really would like him to thank for his valuable time here that he has given. So as Professor Jayashree mentioned, Dr. Farooq Sheikh is a very accomplished professor and a very impressive profile. He has done some substantially good work, especially in areas of epilepsy, using some very innovative models such as zebrafish. So he's very well known in his field, and at his young age, he has extensively published. He's been guiding master's students and PhD students. As a matter of fact, he has given us an open invitation that if students are wanting to pursue their PhD, there are openings regularly in his lab into Malaysia, and I would really want to encourage some of the students who are really interested into going into brain science and neuroscience to explore that possibility to be working under the able guidance of Dr. Farooq Sheikh. So without further ado, I really do once again like to warmly once again welcome Dr. Farooq Sheikh to this virtual platform at our campus. Dr. Farooq is also on our advisory board, and he's also an adjunct faculty at our School of Pharmacy. So we'll regularly hear from him, and I'm sure this session of him would be very beneficial for you as you're starting your a small mini project or a mini research journey. So he'll be sharing his perspective, his thoughts on his research journey and whatever he would like to emphasize and bring in front of you. So I'm definitely, it'll be a very valuable session for you, and surely you'll get inspired by his talk. So without further ado, once again, welcoming Dr. Farooq Sheikh to this platform. So over to you, it's yours.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sharik and Professor Jayashree, for very generous, I will say, and very kind introduction. I think this is always a pleasure to interact with faculties as well as the students. And this time I'm very fortunate talking to many final year students. So again, it's a great pleasure here. So I'm gonna cover the topic which is given to me, which is research methodology. And I think as Dr. Jayashree mentioned, you guys will be taking some projects, in this semester. So I think it's very important to understand some basics and fundamentals, about the research. I would appreciate if some of you can on your videos and I could see, otherwise it looks like I'm talking to myself. And it is very difficult to, I think, even for many teachers to take class with that. But I appreciate if you guys can, on your cameras and, if I can see some of you, so that will be just great. Can you? Thank you so much, Aman. Ashif, Akif, Akinawit. Great. I think nice to see you guys. I think, yeah, appreciate if you guys, if I can see you guys. All right. All right. So I guess you guys have either very little or no exposure to the research and research methodology, because I think the curriculum in India and in Mumbai University, I think it's still something which haven't completely incorporated research, and at very early, like year 1 and year 2 is only final year where you have some exposure, right? That's correct. Can anyone just confirm that?
Yes, sir, actually.
Okay, great. Okay, so let me start sharing my slides. At any time of my presentation, if you guys feel you need some clarification, please let me know. I will stop my presentation and we can discuss over that. So I want to keep this is more on discussion rather than me speaking, and let's make it two-way. So I think the topic which was given to me is research methodology, but I have taken a bit of liberty to extend it to research hypothesis and methodology, because understanding research hypothesis is very, very important before actually we get into the main research. Anyone of you actually are aware of what hypothesis mean or methodology mean? Anyone? I mean, you need to be, just be very open, whether it's a right or wrong, doesn't matter. We are here to learn. So just show like, if you know about anything about hypothesis without Googling it, just tell me if you know anything about, hypothesis or methodology. Anyone?
Whatever we think about anything without any scientific proof is called hypothesis.
Okay, that's good. Thanks, Asim. Anyone else?
Assumption.
Assumption, yeah, you can say it. Anyone else? Thanks for that, Aditi. Anyone got any other answers or any thoughts? Any idea?
Ideas.
Ideas, okay. Good, Jihan. What about methodology? What do you understand from word methodology itself? Yeah, somebody wrote in the message to research and write something about some topic. I think that's about hypothesis, right? Yeah, anyone on the methodology? Any answer? Okay, all right, never mind. Let's get back to the slide. Just give me a thumbs up if you can see my slides. Okay, so we're gonna, I hope it's visible to everyone.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks. So I think research hypothesis is very, very important before actually we start any research. Without research hypothesis, which will basically drive your research question, and I'll come what research question is about and research objectives is about. No research can be done without having a solid research hypothesis and without having a solid research problem. So I think as a budding scientist, as a budding researcher, we all need to understand it's not like somebody gonna give us a specific research question and whatever we solve is the only research. But I think the research is also about creating or asking new questions. So that's why I think the curiosity is a very, very important key when somebody is trying to get into a research field. Okay. If you're not curious of knowing things, if you're not curious on, understanding things, if you're not really keen on asking questions and questions, then it is a bit challenging to get into results, because in research, at each and every time point, at each and every stage, you need to ask questions and then go on solving or asking the answers or looking for the answers for those questions. Okay. So KFC's procedure of research, which is called methodology. Okay, we'll get back to that in a minute. Okay, let's move to the next. So yeah, we were talking about research hypothesis, and we are talking about something, we are looking at trying to find out, search or analyze. I think the session before this was talking about mainly how you're going to do literature research and how you're going to find out, different topics and the articles or, data or whatever stuff related to it in the literature. And research is again, very, very important thing to search something, to test something, to analyze something, to generate some data from that. So it's different ways, people will talk about research. And there are researches in almost each and every field, whether somebody is doing marketing, there is market research in there. If you are doing biomedical research or pharmaceutical research or medical research or clinical research or engineering related or arts and social science, each and every field actually do have a research component in it. Okay, the research does not only implies in scientific or the medical or pharmaceutical field, but research is implemented or it can be used in each and every aspects and each and every field. Before that, I think I'm just gonna show this video of Monash University, and this is where exactly we kind of define what research is all about. So let me know if you can't hear the sound.
Everything around us, the food we eat, the buildings we work in, the communities we live in, everything is impacted by research.
Jayashree, can you hear the sound?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, then I'll continue.
The buildings we work in, the communities we live in, everything is impacted by research. Research is now part of our daily life. That's why here at Monash University, Malaysia, we are committed to producing world-class research. We have more than 800 research specialists searching to find the best and most sustainable solutions to real-world problems. We're not just looking for answers, we're seeking new questions. That's what research is all about.
The major drive behind the research at Monash University, Malaysia is its creative talent. We strongly believe in the sustainability and innovation, constantly taking up global challenges and making every effort to develop new innovation, knowledge, and discovery for the regional and global communities. We value the contribution of our researchers and the professional staff that create a vibrant research ecosystem.
We know the importance of an environment that is conducive for research. Therefore, we provide the best support structure consisting of world-class facilities, experienced supervisors, and even a stimulating framework where our research community can grow. We help them in every way possible in moving research forward.
The success of every commercially viable product or breakthrough is often the result of multiple research, never the work of one. It is that reason we believe strongly in collaboration and partnership. Here, we emphasize on industrial-focused research where we work with Malaysian companies to develop solutions specific to the industry. Nevertheless, we believe through the sharing of resources and with proper funding, we can achieve greater heights than working alone for the benefit of the larger community.
Monash Malaysia is well positioned to take advantage of the university's many global research networks. One such network is the Monash Warwick Strategic Alliance, which brings together two of the world's top 100 universities, Monash partnering with Warwick University in the UK to forge research collaborations that break new ground.
The culture at Monash University, Malaysia is based on excellence, unconventional perspectives and fresh discoveries. Discoveries can come from anywhere. Inspiring solutions may lie in nature, our working environment, or even in simple discussion. The curious mind explores, but success almost always requires hard work and dedication.
Over the years, Monash University Malaysia has made significant contribution to the research community in the form of high-impact publications and training of research students. Building on this high-quality research, we have prioritized translational research that value add to policymakers, industry and community organizations. Our researchers are inspired by the Monash values that contribute to nation building in the region. We take pride in what we do.
So come and join us on our journey of discovery. We're looking forward to new challenges, new ideas and new partnerships. We welcome you to our exciting research community right here at Monash University, Malaysia.
All right, so that's a bit of what we are doing at Monash, and I think also a micro tour of what and how Monash University Malaysia looks like and what all different kind of research we are trying to do here. I think some of the key thing which I wanted to highlight or key skills on a biomedical scientist point of view, and which are it has to be an analytical brain. We as a young scientist or young researchers or someone who is trying to get into research, I think you always have to have this analytical approach. If you're not really having an analytical approach, it will be difficult to actually solve some problem. It will be difficult to create new questions, new ideas, new hypotheses, new research question. So it is very, very important to have an analytical approach, analytical mind, analytical thinking all the time. The second thing which I think many of us lacks is attention to details. We always try to rely on a superficial thing. Even in some of our studies, we just try to look through superficially to certain topics and certain subjects, but we don't go into the depth of the subject. And this is where, when something has been asked or inquired from deep inside the chapter or the topic, we always, don't know about it. So I think paying attention to details is again a very, very important point when it comes to the any research, question to be solved. Then you should gain and try and, make efforts to gain sound research skills, learning. For example, this morning session is about literature research. So you need to learn how actually and effectively and fruitful research literature review can be done. What are the methods? How you're going to search with specific keywords, how you're going to get exactly what you are looking for and not other stuff. So I think developing a sound research skill is again very, very important, which I think everyone has to gain or learn before actually we dive into the research. The another important skill is a problem solving skill. Problem solving skill is again, very much similar to what I mentioned about the analytical approach or analytical, skills. You always not just there to create questions, but you also will be putting a thinking hat on, like, how are we going to solve this problem? There are approach A, approach B, approach C, and approach D. And I think those problem solving skills comes again when you get exposure to certain skills, learning of these skills, and not only learning those research skills, but also applying them in different aspects and thinking around them. To be very honest, when you become a researcher, it's not about like 9 to 5, you think about your research and then you do it, but it's 24/7. You're always thinking about those specific research questions and try to figure out the answers around that, the ideas around that, and the strategies actually to solve those research questions. Very, very important part of the research integrity and ethics is to be very responsible. We, especially as a biomedical scientist, as a pharmaceutical scientist or medical scientist, I think we have to be responsible. Whatever outcome you're gonna show from your research is something for the benefit of human health or animal health, or improving the quality of life of the individual suffering from different diseases. But if we are the one who trying to manipulate, try to play, try to fabricate the data and fabricate the results, I think it is very, very irresponsible. And that is something, if I mean, you guys probably know the examples of some researchers in Japan who got a Nature publication, which is the highest regarded publication in biomedical sciences. Later on, they found out like actually the data they have published in that high impact research publication was fabricated. And what happened to that? They lose their reputation, the name and recognition. They have to lose. They were sacked from the university. They lose their job, and in the end, actually, the scientists did suicide. The reason is, if you are responsible and early on and do not get into illegal and unethical practices, then I think no. So I think right from the beginning, emphasizing and paying attention to be a responsible research is very, very important, because whatever data, whatever results you're going to show, it has to be seen from a translational point of view and from the improving the quality of life of the patients and the individual suffering from different conditions. So it's very, very important to be a responsible researcher. And I think in the current time, we all agree we can't do any task alone or single-handedly. So it always has to be a teamwork, and I think any researcher has to be a team player in order to conduct a research. So I think some people say, oh, I don't get along with certain peoples, I always try to do my work alone. But I think that's kind of a gone days. You could do, but you probably progress very slowly. So it's again very important to work in a team, and one has to be team player. I think some people may not have that ability, but over the time, when you work with different people, I think this environment in your undergraduate is again a very good environment where you have so many different people, like 30, 40 in your class. And if there are chance to work something in a team, I think then you can start practicing and learning how I can work in a team. So I think, as I mentioned, the hypothesis is very, very important. If you're trying to build a research without a hypothesis, then your research will always be very weak and very fluffy. It will not carry any much of weight. And that's why your hypothesis is the foundation of your experiment or whatever research you're trying to do. So I think it is important to build a very strong hypothesis to support your research or whatever research you're planning to do. So if you look at the development of hypothesis is the first step, as I mentioned, in performing any of your experiments, and then it goes further into designing and then performing that experiment. What are some of the characteristics of hypothesis should be? It should be very clear. You're not saying something which is difficult to understand or difficult to digest, but something very clear, very specific and testable. I think that's why I have highlighted the testable. If you create a hypothesis which you can't test, you are saying how the rats are walking on the moon, I think it's difficult to test. But if you say how at what pace, at what length, and how the human walks on the moon, I think at this point of time we can say it is testable. So I think your hypothesis, I'm just giving an example, but I'm trying to say it is something which is testable, which can be performed, and which can be executed, and it should be a hypothesis. A hypothesis which cannot be tested, then I think it's just an assumption and not hypothesis as such. It is a prediction of the outcome of the experiment. So, I mean, once you propose an hypothesis, you propose with a lot of justification. I'll show you an example how actually you propose an hypothesis, but it is a prediction. I mean, you try to get all the literature, all the data, try to say, okay, this is something I'm trying to hypothesize, and most likely, or it is predictable that this will work, but that it is not necessary, because it's still a hypothesis. Whether your hypothesis pass or your hypothesis fail doesn't matter. You have tested your hypothesis. If it passed, then you can say, oh, my hypothesis actually what I have predicted I could get from my results. But if even your hypothesis fail, it is still a research, because you have tested with putting in your time, effort, energy, animals, chemicals, everything, and you're gonna say the world, look, I have actually tested this, and I didn't find this working. So you don't waste your stuff, and then people will not do that. So what I'm trying to say, even you get a negative result which is beyond the expectation of your results, still it is a result. I think one of the things which people who are early in their career with research get confused all the time is, whatever they plan, whatever they hypothesize, that should be the result. For example, if you test a compound, you say, oh, for example, take, apple should reduce the, fever in someone. That's hypothesis. You're saying this hypothesis based on maybe there are some chemicals in apple which may be, having some antipyretic effect, but you don't know. You have just hypothesis that apple could reduce fever. So you go on, testing on animals and see whether, you induce hypothermia in them, and then give them apple and see whether it reduced fever or not. But what if that particular stuff doesn't, work? It doesn't work. Like there's no reduction of fever using apple. That's absolutely fine. It's still, you can publish your results saying that I have tested apple and it doesn't work in reducing the fever. That is still a research. Either you say yes or no. So I think there is no positive or negative, but it is everything what you get based on what you have hypothesized is a research. So I think we don't need to be very fussy and very much all the time looking at positive results only. Any results in research is a result. But only thing is you probably do confirmation and reconfirmation, making sure the results you got is not by chance, but it is the actual results. So I think you need to put your thinking cap when you are trying to make an hypothesis, and that thinking cap will actually help you to look at a different angle. And I think when you have your thinking cap on making a hypothesis, you have to do a lot of literature. That means reading and reading and reading is the key. I think more and more you read, more and more you will understand about a specific topic or specific research question which you are trying to build a question around, and trying to make a hypothesis around. Then after a lot of reading, you try to narrow it down and limit and express it as a research question. As I mentioned, like you probably look into, for example, again, I'm taking the same example. You say, there are so many fruits. I want to check out which fruits actually work in, for example, pain or fever. And then you go into further and look at, apple and oranges and bananas and all the other fruits, and see, is there any literature available on these specific fruits, and if they do have a potential to actually reduce fever. And that's how you come and narrow it down to a specific fruit, for example, apple, and say, okay, because apple have these ingredients, it is possible it may have an antipyretic effect or a fever reducing potential. So I think it is, again, it is best to choose a hypothesis where you have already some level of familiarity with the discipline. If you are trying to make an hypothesis or project of engineering or maybe in business, which you do not have any background or any idea, then it will be very difficult. You can't really do a solid literature. You can't make a solid hypothesis. But the area which you are very familiar with and you also interested in that, I think try to make a hypothesis in that area. I think again in the research, the area which you are really give you a woo factor and also that excites you. I think again very important to get into that research, because if you choose something which you don't like, then you are not so passionately will be doing that. And I think passion is the key when it comes to research. So I think it's important to choose or try to understand or ask yourself questions like what I'm passionate about, what I want to do, and which discipline or the projects or the diseases which excites you and make you more excited to search and look more about it. I think getting a familiar area will be much more easier for you to think from different angles when it comes to research hypothesis. So I'm just going to give you examples. So this is one of the paper of ours we published last year. And this talk about gut-brain axis on the manifestation of depressive symptoms in epilepsy. So our idea was we were looking at, okay, when the people with epilepsy, when they also develop depression, is it gut-brain axis involved in that? We are talking about gut microbiota, which actually kind of controls some of the functions of the brain. So those who are unaware, like other than our neuronal cells in the brain, there are a lot of neuronal cells in our gut as well, okay, in our gut GIT system. And there is a connection between gut and brain. And these, gut microbiome actually do have a communication kind of gut-brain communication channel, which is happening there. So we hypothesize like, okay, this epilepsy-related depression, there could be definitely a role of gut-brain axis in that. And then we drive the hypothesis based on that. And I'll show you this figure from that paper which we have published last year. We say, okay, epilepsy and depression, which people know, like people with epilepsy, about 20 to 30% of them actually suffer from depression. And this depression, like a lot of symptoms in there, loss of mood, loss of interest, lack of pleasure, reduced energy and fatigue. But we wanted to see whether there's a connection with respect to gut microbiome. And from the literature, we could find the papers which is on depression. This is in depression, we have certain microbiomes, basically, which do play a role or they get modulated. And similarly, we found in epilepsy, there are certain gut microbiome which get modulated. So then we kind of try to sync them and see there are many common gut microbiome which do play a role in both epilepsy and depression. And then we hypothesize, I think modulating these could give us a common strategy to protect against both epilepsy as well as depression. And this strategy could be like treatment with prebiotics or probiotics, and could be FMT, which is fecal microbiota transplantation, which is increasing important technology to treat some of those conditions. So I think this is an idea, an example. I'm trying to say what we have done here. We have read papers of epilepsy, which is talking about gut microbiota, and we took out some of the names of the gut microbiome there. And then we read paper which are on depression and talking about gut microbiota, because there is no single paper we found which is talking about epilepsy and depression together, where they have given some names of the gut microbiome. There's no such paper. And this is where we actually done this hypothesis paper there. And this is how we create. So I think this gives an example of idea, like when you try to make an hypothesis, what are the different topics which you are trying to look into? You have to do your literature research on that, and then that helps you to make an research hypothesis. If you guys have any question, I think you can put either in chat or ask me once I stop presentation. So this is another example. Example 2 is talking about embelin, which we have done some of work on it. We wanted to check whether embelin is something which works for Alzheimer's disease in experimental models. And when you ask some questions like this, I'm sure many of you are aware of chemical structures of the potential compounds, especially pharmacognosy. You try to understand some phytochemicals there coming from the plant and sources. And then we looked at the chemical structure of it and chemical names of it. We looked at the molecular weight and the solubility. We found like, oh, it is insoluble in water, only soluble in DMSO. And what we did further literature to find out whether it does have any activity reported earlier, which is close to CNS activity or close to anti-Alzheimer's activity. So again, when you try to hypothesize something on a specific disease, make sure you do read, you do understand a lot of details about that disease. For example, so when we try to look into Alzheimer's disease, we wanted to understand, okay, there are how many different factors which actually contribute to Alzheimer's disease. So there is a role of neuroinflammation in Alzheimer's disease. There is a role of oxidative stress, in Alzheimer's disease. There is a role of what you call anti-inflammatory and CNS permeability. So we could see in this study, like there is antioxidant effect reported, there is anti-neuroinflammatory effect reported, and we could see there are some CNS activity reported, which is anxiolytic, antidepressant, and anticonvulsant. That means this drug actually works on CNS disorders somehow, because and this gives an idea. If a drug which is working for brain disorders, that means it should also be passing through the blood-brain barrier, which is a stringent barrier for any drug to cross and show its effect for CNS-related activity. So based on this, we thought, okay, amylin could be a potential anti-Alzheimer drug, but again, we are looking at different aspects to confirm our hypothesis or make an hypothesis. So as I mentioned, we did a literature to look at what are the different activities, especially the CNS-related activity, which are already reported. And we could find like there is depression, epilepsy, a traumatic brain injury called TBI, anxiety, cerebral ischemia, Huntington disease, which is one of the neurodegenerative diseases. So that strong our hypothesis, okay, it might work in neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, because I think there are a lot of similarities when it comes to neurodegenerative diseases in terms of the oxidative stress, in terms of the neuroinflammation. And MS, multiple sclerosis, which is again a degenerative disease. Then we look at tumor, sickness behavior. So these were the reported activity within the CNS related to amylin. So we did this literature and we got an idea, okay, amylin, there is a lot of CNS activity reported, but there is no activities reported to Alzheimer's. So that means we have a scope actually to work in this area. What happens if we find Alzheimer's disease is already reported, by someone in the research? That means it's already exists and there's no point asking or doing Alzheimer's research. So just an example, maybe for discussion later on when we do a Q&A. So what we have done, so further to that literature search, we also try to do some prediction. And this prediction is using this paper called Pathan et al. And they say if a drug is able to cross blood-brain barrier, it should meet this criteria. One is this compound should be unionized in nature. The more of chemistry here. Maybe Dr. Jayashree can help later on. And the log P value should be near 2. Molecular weight should be less than 400 Daltons. And it should have a cumulative number of hydrogen bonds should be beyond 8 to 10. Okay. So, and we try to apply this criteria to amylin. And we found that amylin actually is an anionized. So we tick the first box. Then it has a log P value of 4, which is not far from the 2. So that's still okay. And then molecular weight is 294, which is well below the 400 Dalton requirement. And then cumulative hydrogen bond is 6, which is not above 8 to 10. So yeah, based on this, we could predict actually amylin is likely to be transport across the blood-brain barrier. So that's again a hypothesis. But I try to show you when we try to predict or hypothesize something, there should be a strong justification behind it in order to support your hypothesis. Okay. All right. So further to that, we didn't really jump directly on experimental studies, but we try to do some in silico, which can be just computer-based design. And we try to look at two important what you call targets of Alzheimer's disease, which is acetylcholine esterase inhibitor, which most of the drug in the market available are ACHE inhibitor, and then its interaction with amyloid beta, which is a key hallmark of Alzheimer's disease. And we wanted to see whether amylin can interact with them. And then we found actually amylin do have an interaction with both ACHE and amyloid beta. That gives some strength to our hypothesis. Okay, amylin could be a potential because it is not working only through one mechanism, but it has ability to work through the different mechanisms as well. Then only after that, we try to go into some in vitro, very basic lab-based in vitro evaluation using the ACHE inhibitory enzyme assay. And we could find that actually amylin do have inhibition potential at 200 micromolar concentration and with the IC50 value of 168. So based on this, we could hypothesize, so again, just summarizing what we have done, in vitro and in silico ACHE inhibitor, in silico amyloid beta affinity, and we know from literature it has anti-neuroinflammatory and antioxidant potential. Looking at the chemistry and the BBB permeability and the molecular weight, we hypothesize like amylin could be a neuroprotective and for Alzheimer's disease based on its effects maybe in amyloid beta, reactive oxygen species or antioxidant, as well as the neuroinflammatory pathway. So this is how you try to build an hypothesis and also give justification why you have hypothesized this specific research question. So the question we raised after this is amylin could be a potential anti-Alzheimer's drug candidate. This is our hypothesis. Whether it is or not, this is a matter of investigation based on our experimental studies, which we have done further to prove that. But this is how you actually come to a research question or research hypothesis before you get into the experimental part of it. So after that, actually, we wanted to test, BB permeability in using in vitro system because we just did prediction on numbers. Then we wanted to test different models to check whether there is a cholinergic hypothesis which works, then tau and amyloid beta and vascular hypothesis. But it's a matter of maybe some other time to show you the detailed results. But this is something which help us to create more specific objectives of the hypothesis and research question which we have developed on amylin. So now come to the important aspects once we develop hypothesis is about the research methodology. And I think research methodology, as many of you actually mentioned, this is about asking some questions like, how to do it, where to do it, when to do it, how much to do it, and, who to choose, what to choose, why to choose. I think all these questions, as I mentioned, research is about asking more and more questions. I think more and more questions you raise, more and more close you are getting to your research method and your research hypothesis. If you look at literal definition, it's a specific procedures or techniques which are used. Again, I have highlighted identify, to select, process, and to analyze information of a specific topic. So it's general. You can apply to anything where you are trying to identify a specific, selection processes and method of analysis where research methodology is very, very important. Then, if you look at what is the purpose of research methodology, we always should ask, for anything we do, there should be a rationale, there should be a reason. And this basically help us to explain the reasoning behind why you're trying to use this method. If you're using, acetylcholine esterase inhibition activity, so you need to explain why you're choosing this assay, why you're not choosing other assay. If you're trying to use animal models, then you try to explain why you're using animal models and not other methods. If you're trying to, trying to use a specific method, then you try to explain why you're using this method and not the other method. So there is justification and question you're asking yourself at each and every step of the research in order to make sure you justify your method and it is in line what actually the way it should be done. It's not like you are trying to do something which is meant for Alzheimer's disease, but I think your parameters, your method is not supporting what you're trying to search using the Alzheimer's disease. So you need to support your collection of methods, method of analysis, and other key points of your work using the research methodology. So what kind of methods you use for your research is become very, very critical and very, very important. So coming to the types of, there are 4 types of main methods if you literally try to search it. One is observational, where just observations are mentioned. I think it's very much applied in a lot of clinical studies where, you try to look up, for example, if you're trying to understand how the memory problems happens in people with diabetes, for example. Okay, very specific, very straightforward question. You try to understand, or you make an hypothesis saying that, okay, diabetes, people more than 60 years of age may have a memory problem. Whether they do have or not, that's another research question. So you want to ask a question like whether diabetes people do have a memory problem. Then you go on searching, questioning, interviewing, or asking survey to the people who are suffering from diabetes and those who are more than 60 years or specific age group. If you try to decide, can ask them specific questions which fulfill your criteria. So the method you are trying to use is an observation. You're not giving any drug, you're not giving any performing any experiment, but you're trying to observe what all they have and what all they have to say about their memory problem, the people with diabetes. So it's a method of you are applying observational studies or observational type of methodology over there. They're all set of questionnaire and all those things which are, I think, maybe in future sessions you guys probably learn about. Then the second is experimental. As I mentioned, the example of Alzheimer's disease, when you're trying to test something and you're trying to use either in vitro, in vivo, in silico. You're going to conduct specific experiments where you have to apply some put some intervention and try to observe those things. So there is second type, which is more experimental type. The third type, which I think I showed you about predicting whether they do have an affinity to ACTH inhibition or beta amyloid using the computer simulation. So some of these studies could be based on simulation, like molecular drug designing and molecular docking studies are basically based on simulation, whether this work. And there are a lot of other engineering and I think computer projects which are purely based on simulation. You try to simulate something. I think you guys also might have done some pharmacology experiment which is based on simulation. You press a button which simulate to put in 5 milligram of acetylcholine, and it goes to the fraud rectus, which is again based on simulation. There is no real experiment, but you try to simulate some of those things. And I think the last one is derived one, which is based on some derivation, applies more into the stats and mathematics and computer and algorithm and machine learning. So all derived thing and derivation thing goes into that. So I think that's in general what the purpose and the types of research methodology. So I think some people may confuse between research methods and research methodology. I will say research methodology is a bigger umbrella and research method actually sits into that. So if you look at the literal definition here, the science of understanding how research is performed. So for example, your study is observational or experimental or derived or simulation. That's the research methodology. But if you talk about research method, you are talking about specific, or we're going to use zebrafish, we're going to use UV spectrophotometer, we're going to use HPLC. These are specific methods you're talking about. That's called research methods, and the methodology is a bigger umbrella or bigger term. So I think again, selection of methodology is very, very important. And again, as I mentioned, more and more literature, more and more knowledge of research methodology, what people have, especially the last 3 years and last 5 years, which are the most advanced method which people are using in the specific field you're trying to use. If you're doing experimental studies, or if you're even trying to do some literature research, then you try to look at the last 3 years or 5 years of work. what people have done in that particular area. So it's purely depends on what a researcher is looking into and what specific selection and inclusion and exclusion criteria based on the different studies you are looking into, you decide. And at the same time, this research methodology type should satisfy the need of your experiment, the need of your research question. If you're using a method which does not satisfy the need of your research, then I think that research methodology is not useful. You probably need to redo and repeat your experiments. So I think it's very, very important you try to justify the methods you are using are very much relevant to the research question what you are asking. So yeah, this is some example of the embedded. I'm not going to go in detail. We wanted to ask more question on that. So I think in summary, if you look at make a research mindset is again very, very important. Ready to face negative results. And as I said, the results are results. There is no positive or negative. These all are results. The hypothesis is the first step in your research, and then hypothesis should be testable. You don't try to create a hypothesis or method which can't be tested, and then negative or positive result is still a research. So I think that's my take-home message on that. And I think that's basically it. Yeah, thank you so much for your attention. I'm more than happy if you guys have any specific question, and let's make it more, discussion kind of thing now. Back to you, Dr. Jayashree.
Yes, participants, any questions? You can unmute from your end. How to select the topic or how to choose the topic and all related to your projects. Anyone? You can put your questions in the chat box as well.
Yeah, I think many of them are very shy.
Jihan, Kaif, Maithili. Yeah, Sania.
Probably presentation, what a bouncer for them, is it?
No, not at all. Actually, specifically the difference between research method and research methodology, that was very well explained. And the most important thing that take home message from the students also, that whatever the result, it could be either positive or negative, but still it's a research or project. Otherwise, like their mentality or mindset is like that ki negative result hai, so it could not be considered under research and all.
Right.
At least, so at least they have cleared their concept on that. Kajal.